What's up, family? You're listening to Living Beyond the Dream podcast, a podcast where we have practical conversations, take the dreams you have for yourself and your organization and turn it into reality. We are in episode 46. You're joined by Mike and my man Tyler like every single week, and we're so blessed, man. 46 strong. You still been trucking. We keep growing and drawing new people, and every week, man, I just love hearing all the feedback from you guys, so thank you so much. Tyler, you excited about this one?
I'm so excited about this one.
You pumped about this one?
Pumped about this one.
What are we talking about?
It's an incredible topic today.
Oh, got a new
Come on.
descriptive word.
New word in the vocab. Pathways to growth.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
After recruiting, do our people know, A, where they want to go, and B, do they have clear steps to get there?
Yeah.
Very important thing. So that's what we're covering today. This is a huge topic. It's been on our focus for months and months on end now, it seems. Why is this so important?
Yeah, this one's really been on my heart, and I'm struggling with this one because it's causing me to shift the culture and change where we're thinking and focusing on as a church. And let me preface this. When I'm saying I'm not attacking life groups or small groups.
Yeah.
I think they will always exist. They're always going to be there. But we're finding it's hard to get someone to even come to church once a month to every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so what I'm finding is that if we can't even get people to come to church but every 4 to 6 weeks, how difficult is it to get someone to commit to a life group weekly?
Yeah.
You're finding that it's really hard, and every pastor friend I've talked to, this is the dilemma. And so my thought process in all this is we cannot let excuses keep us from discipleship, which means we have to use every opportunity we have to disciple. And sometimes maybe the only way you get that opportunity is when they come into your department.
Yeah.
And some people, that might be your opportunity to disciple them. Now, I would always want someone to be serving in a department and be in a life group, but that's not always the case, and we're finding that.
Yeah.
But I'd rather them be plugged in somewhere. But if they're going to be plugged into your department, they can't just be a roster on a name that you fill on a schedule.
Yes.
You have to learn to disciple them and put them on a pathway to growth, and you've got to be pouring into them so they can become more mature and more active in their faith. And so we've got to be capitalizing on opportunities in our apartments, because most apartments function with this idea is you are basically an employee that I'm putting you on a time schedule to show up, to serve your allotted time, and then go off, and we have no connection beyond that.
Yeah.
And that cannot be the way 2019 and beyond, the way departments look,
So true.
because sometimes that might be their only community.
Yeah.
So we've got to capitalize on that opportunity to see them grow.
Yep. So good. So we're going to say that word path or growth path quite a bit in this. So to identify, so the listeners have something to hold on to this, could you give a quick example of like what a growth path is that maybe you're working on? Or
Yeah,
something?
and mine's a little bit different than probably some that would be departmentally, but other churches, other leadership circles will call this a pipeline, right? The pipeline. I like pathway better just because
Pathway's nice.
it's different.
Yeah.
So my pathway is a little bit different than probably departmental, because I'm identifying people that may have a call to pastoring. Not necessarily always lead pastoring, but they feel called to, man, they're not in vocational ministry.
Yeah.
That's not what they're doing, but they kind of, that's where they want to go, or they see themselves, or they're thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so I have a little bit of a different pathway. So I purposely try to mentor a few people that are outside of my staff.
Yeah.
That gives me the ability to make sure I'm pouring into people, gives me the ability to be intentional with people, and also see people grow. And what I do is several things. I have a pathway, which means I've outlined 12 books that I think are really important, cultural, structural, idea book, leadership books I feel like are really imperative for you to know and learn if you're going to be a pastor. And so what I do is I have them read that. We meet 7 o'clock in the morning usually, or earlier, bi-weekly.
Wow.
And they break down what they've read, and we talk and we discuss. We do some personal check-in time. We kind of talk about that. And then through that pathway, several things I want them to do. One, I want them to be leading a life group. I want them to be able to attract a group and be able to pour into people. Secondly, I want them to identify 2 to 3 people that they start pouring into.
Yeah.
So that's another key element for me seeing them function. Thirdly, I want them active in a department where they start taking a lead team role member. Yeah. So they start being empowered over areas in that department. And then as they progress, I look at things like I want them to create a business plan for a church, what that would look like. Identify every kind of leader they would need if they were going to plant a church and what that would need and roles. And then if they feel like that next step, that's what we would do next. We'd actually have them start building a launch team and start building and growing that and then sending them out to actually plant a campus that we would do or a church plant. Yeah. And so what we're trying to do is kind of outline it. And there's a few other things we do in between there, but that's just a kind of a 30,000-foot view of what I'm looking at. So what I'm trying to do is really, it's mainly not necessarily material. It's all about culture.
Yeah.
It's all about connection.
Yeah.
And it's all about just one-on-one discipleship. They're getting the ability for me to pour into them. We're building rapport, and I'm able to speak into life. And we don't just talk about the books. We talk about family. We talk about their work life. So, we're talking about all these things because this is what naturally comes up, and we built the rapport that we're able to build that, and they're starting to catch culture and start learning the culture, and they start living the culture. And so that's kind of the whole goal and the progression of what I do in my pathway. I call it the pathway to pastoring.
Yeah.
In the kind of the 30,000-foot view on my end.
Yeah, that's really good. So clear next steps. Here's where we're going.
Yes, and I make them sign a commitment saying that's nice. They're going to be committed to it, and that's what they're going to do. And what we do is I lay it all out before we start beginning. I say, is this something you feel like you commit to?
Yeah.
Is this something you want to? And you're going to have to be intentional with this, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to chase you down to meet with you.
Yeah.
If you want to meet with me, you're going to be intentional with wanting to meet with me, making sure your schedule's open, and scheduling that stuff with me. And then that's kind of the way we kind of go into that commitment together.
Man, that's good. So I want to come back to some more practical sides of how to put that together and everything like that. But before we do, I want to talk about what can not having a growth plan do to a volunteer if there's not next steps.
Well, if somebody's not growing spiritually, they're going to spin out in every other area of their life.
Yeah.
And so what you're understanding is the health of your organization is all stemmed from the spiritual health of your people.
Yeah.
And that's why I say if we have a healthy volunteer corps, and we don't call them volunteers, but if we have a healthy volunteer corps, if we have that health, then our church is going to be healthy.
Yeah.
But if we're unhealthy in our people, if our people are not growing spiritually and thriving, then our entire organization is going to suffer.
Yeah.
And so it is the utmost responsibility to make sure our frontline people are healthy and they're thriving and they're growing. So you need that for the future of your organization.
Yeah. So good. Would you recommend to have set plans per department or like create individual growth plans like per person?
Well, I would say that you can start tailoring it as you go, but I would say to get started, it's important just to keep it simple and keep it structured.
Yeah.
And learn the art of just committing and being consistent with people.
Yeah.
So what I would tell you to do before you do anything else is I would first get the personality test done with people.
Yeah.
Get some of those spiritual gifts tests done with people. Really kind of understand your people so that you can help them thrive in those areas and learn to lead them. And then secondly, I would identify several books that you would think would be important for spiritual growth for them.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be an important key step. A really great tool and great book is something called Real Life Discipleship. There's a book and then there's a workbook or manual that you can get, and both of them are great. The manual is actually really good because it's literally fill in the blanks and you're kind of following along with stuff and scriptures. But what that does is it really kind of outlines what discipleship looks like and what is the growth of a believer.
Yeah.
What is the growth of a disciple? And so that's a wonderful place to start with every Dream Team member.
Yeah.
Whether they ever feel called to be vocational, whether they feel called to ever work for a church full-time, or they just want to be a follower of Jesus, this is imperative for every believer, every Christian. And it's going to kind of give them the understanding of why we disciple and what their responsibility is. And it's a wonderful thing for you as the leader to understand that because a lot of leaders don't understand that.
Yeah.
So it's a great place to start. There may be some other cultural books that you feel like structure your church in that, or the leadership styles you want, or why you do church the way you do. Great books to kind of grab that you want to pull on, and that's kind of stuff. And then just meet and discuss. It's nothing more complicated than that.
Yeah.
You don't have to have lessons planned out. You don't have to have a PowerPoint presentation. I know people don't use PowerPoint, but you know what I'm talking about. You don't have to have some video, high-quality things you record. You literally need to read a book or read that workbook and sit down and meet on a consistent basis and talk about it, and you're going to see growth.
Yeah. So, and you kind of touched on it earlier, but talk to me about the accountability side to this. I absolutely love that with yours, you're up front, you even have them sign, which is awesome on not only on your side because you're getting, the accountability on that or the buy-in on that, but also on their side. You know, they know what the expectations are and everything like that. So how do you keep accountability? How often? Tell me about that.
Well, you need to meet at least twice a month.
Yeah.
I would recommend, if you have the time, at least meet twice a month. Don't keep it so sparse that if you miss a meeting, you'll never see them that whole month. Mm-hmm. So that's important. Don't meet so much that it now becomes a burden.
Yeah.
But create some consistency there. And they need to create some consistency there. And if they can't meet, during lunch or after work or you can't, then get up early.
Yeah.
I get up early and I meet, and I'm actually home to help still take the kids to school. So you can still meet early enough that you can get together with people and then still get back to help your kids get to school if you need to. So think about that in a strategic way and then kind of help that way. So you may have to meet. Some people meet 6:30 in the morning. I know that's early, but, get in there and get involved. And so be consistent with that.
Yeah. How do you as a leader encourage your people to keep growing on the plan? Yeah. Like to keep taking the next step and the next step?
Well, they won't keep taking that next step if they're not feeling value in that relationship. Mm. So if you're not investing in them, they're going to quit.
Yeah.
Right? If you keep counseling on them, if you're not having an honest conversation, if you don't care about their personal life, you're not encouraging them, they're going to quit. I mean, just that will. And some people will quit no matter what you do, because some people are just not going to be in it. But you've got to learn to just be consistent and make it valuable for them by giving them your attention. Don't be pulling out your phone.
Yeah.
Being consistent with them and honor them when they're there and let them know that you want to add value. That's by far, and be authentic and honest in those conversations. Share your struggles. Share the things that you've learned the hard way through the years, and that's going to make them build a camaraderie that's going to want to build that bond even more with them.
Yeah, for sure. What do you do if they've reached their peak on the plan?
Well, they shouldn't reach their peak because they should start discipling other people. Mm. So the whole goal is them to understand that they don't hoard what's been given.
Yeah.
They pour out what's been given.
That's good.
So they need to be mentoring 2 to 3 people.
Yeah.
And what happens is now they start becoming just a relationship that you kind of pour in on not as consistent a level, but now they're doing this with other people. So now their schedule's being filled with them pouring into. And the goal is that those people pour in 2 to 3 people, and that it's going to expand and multiply an impact of healthy disciples, not just adding things to people. And that's the whole point of doing what we do, is raise up leaders that multiply and disciple other leaders.
Yeah, that's so good. And so lastly, can you talk to the leader or about a leader that would invest time, heart, all the things, and builds a growth path for a volunteer that quits or gives up or doesn't reach their fullest potential? How do you navigate the upset there?
People are messy.
Yeah.
People have free will and choice, and not everybody's going to do what they think or want in their heart, right?
Yeah.
Paul even said, I want to not sin, but I do it, right? I mess up sometimes. That's what people do. You've got to understand every single one of us as leaders have had people we've poured into walk away or make a mistake or kind of give up on their potential. That's just part of the game.
Yeah.
And what we do is realize that though we poured into them, we planted a seed. And what's Paul say? I planted it, Apollos watered it, but God made it grow, right?
Yeah.
You planted a seed in their life, and maybe you didn't see it grow, but down the road, that seed's still there, and someone might water it, and it's going to grow because God's the one that makes it grow.
Yeah.
So understand, man, I know it stinks, it hurts, but don't let it stop you from being what God and Jesus told you to do, to make disciples.
Yeah.
And always continue to make disciples.
Come on.
All right, family, we done again, another one in the books. So I want to make sure you're out there learning and discipling. Couple great resources like I told you, that Real Life Discipleship book's really helpful. Also, one of my favorite books out there called Designed to Lead. Phenomenal book about the structure of leadership and the importance of it in the church. So I want to encourage you on those two resources. And until next week, pray God's peace.